I want to welcome you to our Netgen Layouts 1.4 overview, where our own Ivo Lukac will be presenting all the new features, all the exciting new features that we built for you guys to kind of play around with and use and streamline your website management. This webinar is going to be about 1 hour in length. So because there's a lot to cover, we'll try to keep it as exciting as possible, but because there's a lot to cover, please save your questions for the end of the webinar for a short Q&A, and please list them inside the chat. We will be reading all of them at the end of the webinar, so you can get the answers to all of your questions towards the end. And without further ado, I give the floor to Ivo to kind of present all the new exciting features of Layouts 1.4.
Thanks, Mislav. Hi, everyone. I'm Ivo, and I will be showing you some things that we're working on for a lot of months, but now it's ready to show for you to enjoy. So, first of all, a note to regarding the topic. So I will now talk mostly for the general audience. So we will do another one for developers in a couple of weeks, which will be more technical. I'll really try not to be too technical today. Most of it is not, maybe some small details, but you will survive. First, one important thing that you understand this presentation better. So we usually talk about Netgen layouts as a product, but actually there are two things, and it's good moment to kind of try to distinguish what's the difference. So Netgen layouts is a tool that we built that helps us build pages and change things on the pages, etc., etc. But on the other side, layouts by itself is not something that we use. We use layouts together with the Ibexa CMS, which was previously known as Easy Publish or Easy Platform. And but it's not only that as well. So we have the whole stack. We call this Netgen stack for Ibexa, which is Ibexa CMS with Netgen layouts, and then with a lot of other things, which we then use to build websites. And that's the difference. So layouts is more like a component which we use on usually when we do websites with Ibexa. The thing with layouts also is that it's not the only used solution. Or the Netgen stack is not the only solution using layouts. There are also some e-commerce projects using Cilius and layouts. There is a omni-channel box by Infologs, and there is, of course, a lot of projects which are maybe custom that use layouts as well. So our stack is one of the solutions using layouts. That's just to cover some basic terminology. Our agenda for today is go through big and some small news. So definitely big news are two big news in layouts is the component blocks and editable preview and some other smaller things. And then on the stack level, we have the some completely new installation or instance with some improvements in the user interface and some smaller stuff as well. And then in the end, just what we are working already for the new release. So without much delay, we just go directly into the main topic. So component blocks. So first thing is maybe or most of you probably know this site. This is the demo site that we had before and we still have. It's we call it Fit and Healthy. It's like a media site or a demo or an example of a small media site. And we used to have we used to start with this a demo site. It uses layouts, it uses Ibexa CMS, and we used to start with this installation for every new project for which we use our stack. And then over the years, we got into same kind of similar problems. Is, do we use this, or is it good to use this thing for a new project? And the question is, it depends, like always. So it was great for everything which was more like media site or a news site or a news portal or whatever. There is a lot of content that needs to be shown on some home pages or some category pages or stuff like that. But as soon as we got into a different use cases like marketing and corporate sites, it was not that simple. And we were struggling with this kind of project. We still did it, but it was not optimal. And why it was not optimal? Because it's just a different use case. For media site, you have content pages like blog posts and news. It's usually a single site. It's usually a single language. It's mostly about grids and lists with pulling content from and showing teasers from content which lives in some other categories. For corporate site, it's more about landing pages, marketing pages, probably multi-site, probably multi-language. There is usually blocks like hero images and branded messages and USPs and benefits and features and so on and so on. So it's technically different. Of course, there is a possibility that you have a site which has or needs both of these features, of course, but this is a clear distinction with these kind of use cases. And what we figured in many projects that we did, we kind of went to, okay, let's see what kind of blocks we actually do on these corporate websites. And we figured basically 6 different kinds of blocks we use, not just one. I mean, we still use the grids and lists, which we did use before, but from the missing ones, we actually miss these 6. And we think that they cover at least 80% of most of the projects of corporate websites. And what are these? Sorry, before I go into each, the basic. Then we got to this basic idea of, okay, we need a new kind of blocks for layouts. We will call them components because they are composed of several or many small content elements like strings and images. They always have one purpose. It's not the idea that you can reuse them as you like. They should have one purpose. They are bound to one content type and one content item, meaning that there is a content type defined in the CMS for each of the components. And when you create a component, it can only hold one item. This is a limitation because there are other blocks we already had, grids and lists, which cover a collection of items. So this one we limited purposely. Why? To make it simple to use them. And each of these components can have several sites. They have styles. They have default number of styles, but of course you can add more. Important note is that you don't need to be a developer actually to set up a new component. So let's go quickly through each of them. Like on every page or marketing page, there is a hero component. Our hero component that we built on the demo site has 3 styles. It has usually 2 or up to 2 call to action links. It also supports, for example, mobile and desktop background videos, of course, images, etc., etc. So this is something that you can start with. Of course, if you need another piece of I don't know, an additional string or additional image or additional button, or if you need an additional style, it's always easy to add those. But this is the starting point. Of course, if you don't need to have 3 styles on your project, you can easily remove each style separately. The about component is the most generic one. Usually you have on a on a page, you have one hero, but maybe you have more a kind of about styles. It's about means that it talks about a certain topic or a certain story or small story. It has 5 styles. It's most generic component of all of them. Here are more styles that you see. You can see the variations. Of course, you can add more. Feature component is an interesting one because feature component is usually having a certain number of items, or I call them pieces because we have items in the grids and lists. So I will call these things pieces. A piece can be something with an image, with a number, with the icon, whatever. In the content type, we have 8 pieces. So the content type has prepared for 8 pieces. Again, you can add more. This is competing with a typical use case where before the components, we would create these pieces as content items, and then we would have a grid block with these content items. This is like, it depends on the use case, whether you will use the old method or the new method. It depends on the content, actually. If the content is reusable, maybe you will, or probably you will use the grid with each item as content separately. If you are certain that it will not be reused, it is only on this page, only on this layout, then it's better to use the feature component. And it has 8 styles, so you see all the variations that you can use. Logos components, usually not a lot of these on the websites, but definitely very common. Not going to too much details, it should be self-explanatory. Lead component is a very important one because we have you need to usually have a call to action or maybe some contact form, lead form, whatever. This one we have 3 styles. The question is where these lead forms or the forms where they are posting or where they are sending this data. Of course, we have some implementation that is sending in email and storing, but this can be again integrated whatever with Salesforce or any other CRM. Code component, again, not not always visible, but definitely useful. 3 styles. You could put in the same content 8 quotes, so it could be a slide of quotes, not just 1 quote. What do we solve with these component blocks? Well, a bit more technical. We speed up development. It's better for front-end development, so kind of makes it easier for developers, definitely, but it also makes it easier for editor. So it's easier to create content, it's easier to manage content, it's easier to manage layouts because you have less blocks. It's not like for a typical feature kind of block with title and description and 4 features. Previously, we would need maybe 5-6 blocks and 4 items in content. Now we have 1 content item and 1 block. And what we call the banneritis, this is actually our internal term, but it talks about too many objects to have to create this one purpose block. So that definitely we see a lot of improvements when we using this new components. So extendability is the same as we add any block, so it's you can add additional plugins to those blocks. This is a usual thing, so nothing special. So these were the components. So let's go directly into the second big thing, which is the editable preview. We used to have a preview before, but it was static. It would only show the page. Now we went into some improvements. So now in the preview, you can click on a block and you can change the parameters of the block, as you can see on this video, and you immediately see the changes. And that's definitely something that editors would like because it doesn't require switching back to the edit mode and then changing some things and then going again into preview. So the preview is becoming much more useful than it was. So this was about changing the configuration of each block and seeing immediately the changes. The other thing that we implemented is adding the block. So when you click on a block, you can add another block under the existing block. And this will again this is something again that will be easier for the editors, because they will see immediately what's happening. We still don't have the delete, move up, move down, and other things, which is coming shortly in the next release to make the lives of editors even more easier. What is also important is when you create a block, it could be empty. And that's why we needed to do this kind of visually possibility for editors to see that there is a block, even though it doesn't show anything. That's why we have this striped background, so that you can easily see the empty block. Now the combination of, just to show the combination of the new preview and the new component, this is now adding a hero block in the editable preview. You see that the block is selected. We go and say create new content for this component block. It opens the Ibexa CMS editor in another tab. And once we add some content, which will take a while because my colleague is very slow in typing, who recorded this. Once we publish this, the content will be created. You can close the tab, and automatically in the preview you will see that new block. And now wait for the publish, and now we switch out the tab, and here we will see that the block is shown once the preview is refreshed automatically. So that was it. There is one more small thing, which is you can force the refresh of the preview. Not a big thing, but usually small things can be very important. What is missing, as I already told you, the moving blocks, duplicating blocks, deleting blocks, also configuring visibility of the block. This is something that we will do in the next release. Some other things relating directly to layouts. So we made two more typical blocks. So these are not the component blocks. These are blocks that can hold a list of items. And they are very typical, and we use them a lot on our website. So one is the zigzag, obviously. It's like a list item, it's just zigzags the direction of the image. And the other is the accordion block, usually used for FAQs, but maybe for some other use cases. It's a special kind of list block because it has this accordion feature. Okay, finally, concluding with the layouts news, this is a bit technical, but maybe someone will find it important. With layouts, we support all these PHP and Symfony versions. Yoo-hoo. Okay, so this was about layouts. Now we are switching to our stack based on Ibexa, and there's a lot of stuff there, that not just the layouts news. So first big news is that we support the Ibexa 4 version. So not sure how many of you have used Ibexa, but it's a new rebranded name. Ibexa 4 is the newest version. We didn't support some of these earlier versions for many reasons, which I will not go into details right now. But that's now the fact. So we have the new version of Ibexa, the new administration interface, and the other important thing is that the installation, the boilerplate that we have, the instance that we start our projects with, is multi-site. And what does it mean? So previously, as I shown in the beginning, we had this fit and healthy media site example. Now we have one more site, which is an example corporate site, which we call the Bold Agency. And this is now the situation. So we have, in the same installation, we have 3 sites. Actually, it's 2 sites, but one is multilingual. the Fit and Healthy Media site, and then the Bold Agency corporate site in English and in German, which is excellent starting point for any kind of more complex project. It's a bit overkill if you want to start a single site, single language, but we tend, or our projects tend to be over the years tend to start maybe small, but then become complicated. So for us, by default, multi-site and multi-language is the way to go. What is important, we didn't remove anything, so there is still this Fit and Healthy, which we had before. We have the Bold Agency additional, which is the example of how we use the component blocks. The important thing to note is that the theme, the visual theme, the templates and the CSS, the design is shared. So if you now go to the Fit and Healthy site and add there a new component block, it should work. So for us, and hopefully for you, if you have a more corporate kind of site, the Bold Agency site, the boilerplate is a good starting point. It's a base. So it's not just about implementation. What we also had created is the design of these, or of the site, the Bold site, is in the Figma, and there is a style guide for all the fonts and colors which are used on both sides. So why is this maybe interesting for you? Because in this Figma file, what we did is we, and this is, for example, a site that we are working on now, we reuse as much as possible what we already prepared in the for the Bold Agency web design. And of course, I'm not speaking about, you know, the colors and the images and all the specific stuff. What I'm talking about is things like the font sizes, the text sizes. So we prepared a lot of these text sizes up front, which is a lot of work because you need to cover all the line heights, all the paddings or the margins, etc. And this is actually the list of all these predefined sizes of text. And for each designer to do this every time on each new project is I think it's just waste of time. So you can use this. We can provide you with this Figma file, and if you start a new project for our stack, to definitely be good starting point, or at least a reference point for your designers. So what we also have is new content types in the Netgen stack. So obviously, for each component block, we have a special component content type, which you can change on the project if you need more attributes. We also have another content types, or several other content types, which we tend to use a lot in all of our projects. So this is all coming from the projects we did. So a job position, which is something that you can use, job application form and lead form. Obviously, I mentioned already we have these forms. Then the old feedback form is renamed to contact form. So now we have 3 new content types for forms. We have the logo, because this is something that you use with the component, logo component. We have the accordion item, which is used with the accordion blog. The author become a person because it's a bit more generic. It doesn't have a view, it's just a piece of content that you can use. There is a new field type, and that's an interesting story. Again, something coming from the projects. To make a good link, which sounds simple, is actually quite complex, and you can see this from the old excerpt from the administration interface, because the link could be internal, the link could be external, the link can have alt text because of SEO and accessibility, it could have a special label, it could have a anchor suffix, it can have additional options like opening new tab, etc. So usually we use for a one link, we usually use 5 to 8 attributes. And this was just repeating a lot of complexity all over the place. So we just packed it into one field type we use. So now it's one, it works always the same, and it should be much easier for the editors especially, but also for developers. So this was all the news regarding content types. We switched to the Ibex admin user interface. We used before something else, but now we are finally using the new admin user UI for managing content. But there are still some things that we wanted to improve. So small things. This is just a small change from before. Maybe you don't know, but Ibexa CMS has two different things which looks the same but not the same. Ibexa location, Ibexa content. Previously the default was content, but now it's location. I will not go into details, but that's a change. What we also failed or missed was the showing of the content-based target is now shown in the layouts tab. So in the Ibexa admin user interface, there is a Netgen layouts tab, and which shows the content that, or actually the layout that is applied to this content. Then what also is shown is the content which is, or actually again, the layout where this content is shown as an item. So that's something that we also show. And then what we don't show, we don't show now, but we will do in the future, is in the when you are on the component, for example, you don't see the layouts where this component is shown, and that's something that is missing. We will fix that. More things that we improved in the admin UI. We show the link from content to content type. This is a very simple thing, but super useful. It wasn't there, so we added. Also, when you go from the content type, you can click on the link to get all the content of that content type via the search filter. We also show the number of content items for each content type. And we also show the content name in the tab title, so that when you have a lot of tabs in your browser, that you can more easily find the tab which is open. So small things, but useful things. Some other things, maybe I will go very quickly through this. We refactored a bit the favicons and the open graph images. Not very particularly interesting. Also, we fixed some alignment issues with the rich text. Whoever works already with the Ibex admin UI, maybe they will know what we are talking about. We still don't have the support for setting a CSS class on a link inside the rich text. This is something that we are waiting for Ibexa to do it, but maybe we'll need to do it on our own. That's something that is very annoying, but we still kind of hope that it will be soon. It's very useful. What else? Search results. We updated the search results page, the pagination and the image usage. Forms. So all forms are Ajax based. They have a honeypot field to try to prevent the spammers. We will soon add the Google CAPTCHA and server validation to this, and there is a support for GTM, which is also useful. So yeah, a lot of things. Also, we finally did some design on the user register page and error page. This is all in both of the example sites. So of course the change on your project, the design will change, but maybe it will save a bit of your time because we did a lot of preparation. And finally, a lot of small things. which I will not go through this. It's mostly a bit developer oriented, but there's a lot of changes under the hood which we did to make some things a bit more up to date with modern things. We will talk about this more in the webinar for developers. And yeah, that was quite big or fast overview. There's also an Easter egg if you go to a demo, or if you create the demo site, or if you go to your provided demo site, there's an Easter egg. You can try to find it, but hint, it's a showcase link in the footer. What does it show? Well, it's a big page which showcases all the blocks and all the variations so that you can see what you can do. So that's a special link in the footer. I dare you to find it. So what's next? Finally, what we already doing, we already doing some of these things. So obviously what I already mentioned, preview improvements for block actions, move, delete, duplicate, configure. We also mentioned CAPTCHA and server validation for forms. What we desperately need, and we already are implementing it, is the content import and export, because this is something that doesn't exist in the admin UI, Ibexa admin UI at the moment. Support for Cloudinary directly in the stack. For those who don't know, Cloudinary is a digital asset manager and CDN for images that we use on some of our projects. And maybe we'll also do the component blocks based on Cilius. We'll see about this. Whew, okay, so I was actually quite fast, so 30 minutes, which leaves us with a lot of time for questions. So please do ask questions.
Okay, so guys, you can write to us either in the chat or in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we already have one question from Stefan Plukin. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I apologize if I didn't. So he asks, is it just PHP 8.1 and not 8.2? So in essence, is PHP 8.2 supported?
Yeah, it should be, as far as I know, it's 8.1 plus. So what I know, it doesn't support 8.0. It supports 8.1. And as far as I know, I need to check this, but I'm quite sure it supports 8.2.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions, guys. I know
Mislav, maybe you have a question.
I have a question. Okay, so basically, I'm pretty I'm still relatively new to this company, so I'm always fascinated by something. I used to work a lot with content, so I imagine you guys have plenty of experience with content editors that were basically annoyed with how content was done, and the fact that we weren't able to never see the previews on things like this. So I was wondering, like, when was the tipping point that you decided, okay, this is something that people need, and this is something that's going to be super useful for everyone doing and previewing content? So how long did it take you guys to kind of realize, okay, this is something that we need to implement for people?
Well, as soon as you start doing your own projects, you encounter things that are quite obvious, but you didn't know them when you started doing the product or the solution. So I think as soon as we started doing projects with layouts and the stack, it took us maybe 1 or 2 or 3 projects, but we realized we missed things, and then we started adding those things, and finally it got to the point where we added the preview. But then it was obvious, okay, now we have a preview, but it's fine, but you always need to switch back to the edit mode. So okay, what can we do to make it easier? Okay, we need to enable some of the at least the most common things that you do in the edit mode that you can do it in preview mode. So that's an obvious one, but it's not a simple thing to implement. So it took a while. Regarding the components, this is again coming from the projects. You encounter or you see by doing more, again and again the same thing, and it doesn't feel optimal. You then figure out, okay, there needs to be a more simpler way to do it, and that's something that then you start figuring out or trying to find some easier solution. And that's how components came to be, because they were a relatively simple concept to a big problem, more or less. Okay, I see another question.
Yeah, so basically it's not a question, but more so a comment from Antonio Osdilar, who says it's an encouragement to everyone here using Celius to try it with layouts, because he feels it's extremely promising and promises to kind of use it in the next 3 or 4 months in the first ever project with this. So thank you for the kind words, Antonio, and then encouragement to the rest of the group to try and do the same.
Yeah. Very good, Antonio. We need to find time for some coffee.
Okay, so we'll be sending a sort of follow-up to you guys who registered to the webinar, just to notice your satisfaction, anything you found missing, or maybe have suggestions on how to improve. That goes both for the product and our presentation itself in the next couple of working days. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining our webinar, and looking forward to hearing your feedback on layouts.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.